What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston Breakdown episode. And today we have a very special Star Wars project that just came out, and it aired its first two chapters last night with Chapter 1 of Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord, and Chapter 1 is titled The Dark Revenge, and Chapter 2 is titled Sinister Schemes. So I don't know what the rest of this release schedule will be like. I think it's like 10 episodes maybe. So, you know, you're going to get maybe 5 weeks of 2 episodes apiece, or maybe from here we'll get 8 more weeks of Maul. I'm not sure how Star Wars and Lucasfilm over there will release it. But just before we get into breaking everything down, some spoiler-free thoughts for the people that haven't necessarily checked this out yet. If you're a fan of like Clone Wars or Rebels or Bad Batch or any of the other Star Wars animation, this would be right up your alley. Right? And if you haven't necessarily watched Clone Wars or Rebels or Bad Batch, I would go check out those shows. But also, like, you don't necessarily need to watch this, you know? Like, if you know anything about Star Wars at all, you can watch this, because they kind of throw you right into the mix. And, you know, it's obviously continuing Darth Maul's story, but, like, we know a lot of Darth Maul's story, so I'm struggling a little bit to pinpoint when exactly in the Star Wars timeline this is taking place, and they haven't necessarily said, you know, so if anyone out there knows exactly when this is set and, like, can explain to me this is before this or after that, you know, like, maybe it will become more clear as the show goes on, but, like, obviously this is after, I want to say, the events of, I think it's Rebels, with Sabine Wren and everything that happens on Mandalore, and, like, Maul gets the Darksaber, and it's a crazy storyline, and, like, Ahsoka fights Maul. It's wild. I think this, you know, it goes through, like, Rebels and maybe even Clone Wars, like, final season, maybe a little bit of both. I'm not sure. I haven't watched that animated series in a long time, so, you know, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment sections below. But as far as animation styles, right, like, obviously Clone Wars was the oldest Star Wars animation, and then Rebels is a little bit newer than that. Bad Batch is like their newest animation, right? So Bad Batch to me looked incredible, right? Like, as far as the animation design and style and vibe of that show, it looked amazing. And this Darth Maul show has the exact same type of vibes, where it's like, oh, they're really, you know, dialing that little, like, animation artistry, you know, like, say they were at like 5 or 6 before, now they turn that shit to 11, and, you know, the visuals look unbelievable. It's very smooth and fluid. It feels like it could be a Star Wars movie, you know, like multiple parts in the first 2 episodes. I was like, if they did this, you know, as a, like, storyboard shot for shot design before making a Star Wars movie, they might have like a perfect storyboard laid out that they could just recreate shot for shot and just try and do the best they can live action, and, you know, it would look incredible. But, you know, I don't know if that's how they do it, but, you know, Darth Maul here is absolutely a savage of a character, and I've always said that he was criminally underused. And even when they came back and used him again in Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, he still was underused in my mind. So it's very cool now that Star Wars is giving us our first villain-centric show. Like, I don't think we've ever followed the Sith, and in this, we will straight up be following Darth Maul and the Sith and what he's doing. And if the first 2 episodes mean anything, like, he's going to be slicing and dicing droids and pikes and all types of things. So, you know, we're going to see some darkness. You know, they might not show blood and R-rated violence, because it's still animation and it's like, you know, technically for kids, but not really, you know. I think they definitely tuning it up a little bit for the adults watching, to be like, yo, well, there's going to be some great action sequences in this. And then Sam Witwer voicing Darth Maul absolutely crushes it. But that's enough of my spoiler-free thoughts for anybody at home that didn't watch the show yet. But we are about to jump into this bad boy and start breaking down Darth Maul Shadow Lord. Or just Maul now. He dropped the Darth because he is no longer an apprentice of Darth Sidious, friggin' Palpatine. So, you know, now he is maybe on the hunt for a new apprentice, and he is now just Maul Shadow Lord. As we open Chapter 1, The Dark Revenge, and we open with tense music over what has to be Coruscant, I'm thinking, just because of all the cities and the lights and stuff. But like the animation style with like the brushwork design, like it was really beautiful stuff. But we open on a Mandalorian and some Dathomirians, and they're like scaling, rappelling down the side of a building, and they like, you know, shoot off a tracker. They track this thing into like a bank, I believe, and they track this thing to wherever it goes, and they try to steal a shuttle full of credits, but the cops are hot on their ass and, you know, catch up to them and try to arrest them when Darth Maul steps off the ship behind them, and it's a great shot of Maul and the lightsaber comes out, and then he like kind of reflects everything and starts, you know, 1v20 against the cops, and then, you know, kind of jumps off the plane and swings his lightsaber down, and then they cut into the intro title card, and I was like, oh, that's a good way just to get into it, you know what I mean? Like, let's get after it. We then cut over to a young Twi'lek girl, and it doesn't tell us her name, but closed captions tell us that her name is Devin, and her master there, or mentor, or something like that, is trying to impart some wisdom on her that they will, you know, get some kindness from somebody, that they don't need to steal food, but, you know, they're hungry and broke, so she steals some food and gets caught, and the master, you know, says, don't fight back, don't cause a scene, you know, like, don't reveal who you are, you know, just go with them, and everything should work out, you know, but she gets arrested for trying to steal food for her and her old master here, and the master just lets her get arrested, and she, like, hands him her cloak and, you know, goes to jail. We then cut over to Wagner Moura's character, who, you know, just got Oscar nominated for his work in The Secret Agent this last year, but has done some other voice acting work, like I believe he was the villain in Puss in Boots. But Wagner Moura voicing a character here in the Star Wars universe, which has to be exciting for him. But he seems to be some type of police captain investigating the scene, and he's got all of his other droid cops around too. We then cut over to a three-eyed mob boss named Demas, and he's pissed off about these stolen credits, and he's like, find out who stole them! Ah, you know, he's all pissed off, and this little image here shows off the big guy in the back with the three eyeballs, and he's got to be like a head of one of these cartel syndicates that Maul is after for some reason. I guess we'll find out in further episodes. We then cut back to like Maul's base, and the Mandalorian woman that it was working for him, who I thought might have been Sabine Wren in the trailers for Maul Shadow Lord that I broke down on the channel. Go check those out if you haven't, I guess. But she isn't Sabine, but she is a Mandalorian, so maybe they knew each other. But, you know, she still kind of looks like Sabine, almost like if she was Sabine's evil stepsister. But we find out her name is Rook Cass, and I believe we find that out through closed captions. They don't really say a whole lot of their names throughout the episode. Like, you know, I'm like, come on guys, you're introducing the show. You gotta say these names a few times so people can get on board. Like, I was like, who are these people's names? But Rook Cass goes to talk to Maul, and he says that the one he had a vision of and who he is searching for is here, and that he is going to get revenge against everyone. And get revenge against everyone who disobeyed him, who wronged him, who stole from him. I don't know what they did to Maul, but something's happened, and now he's back for revenge. We then see Wagner Moura's Captain Lawson as he tries to get a name out of the pink Twi'lek girl, and she's now been brought to the police station, and she's like been arrested, but won't say her name, just stays silent, and he's like, alright, throw her in the cell, you know, he can't do much for her if she doesn't want to help him, you know, he's like, come on kid, you know, and like, the droids are giving her a hard time, and he's like, come on, it's just a kid, come on, bring her to my desk, and he's the captain dealing with like a simple arrest, so, you know, he doesn't need to do that, but, you know, seems like this captain guy is a good guy, you know. We then see one of his droids, I think his partner there, Two Boots, shows him some security footage of the laser sword, and he's like, we haven't seen a laser sword like this in a long time. And it's, you know, obviously security footage of Maul, and he like gets face to face with it, and you know just from like this image of like the hologram of Maul, and then the way that it's like looking at Lawson, you know these two characters are going to be button heads all season, and you know maybe there'll be a big head-to-head battle against those two at some point, or maybe Maul will just wipe out this cop, because you know obviously Jedi, well, Sith master of the light sword, dual-ended lightsaber versus a cop. I think the Sith is going to slice him up pretty easily, you know, unless Lawson's hiding that he's a secret Jedi or something, but I doubt it. But they got Wagner Mora, so, you know, maybe. We then cut over to Demas having dinner with a friend, Vario. And Demas is asking him, like, who could possibly pull off this job? And he's like, well, you know, you got lots of enemies, but there is one who could pull this off. And he's like, well, then he would be mad at you, too. And he goes, who says he's not? You know, maybe he's coming after me right now, you know, and they both clearly have Maul in mind, of people that they both seem to have betrayed, that he could be after them. Maul would certainly have the guts to pull off this job, and their like enemies wouldn't. But you know, as they're like talking, the droid gets thrown on the table that Maul was making say something. I don't know what happened there, but it seemed like Maul sent in a trap to make this whole thing set off, and then this ends up in a shootout between Demas and Vario, and Demas, you know, gets around the behind of Vario, shoots his suit that he's in, but Vario's actually a little guy that's in a bigger mechanical suit, so Vario like climbs out, gets behind Demas, and shoots Demas in the back. So, you know, Vario gets one over on Demas, and no more Demas. And he, you know, this was a little bit of a shock to Maul. He's like, Vario took out Demas. Unexpected, you know, and like, but, you know, doing a little bit of his work for him, because if Demas took out Vario, Maul would have just still gone and taken out Demas, right? You know, but now Demas is gone. Maul's job handled for him, but now he's going to go after Vario. And like I was saying, Maul saw all of this, so his team goes after Vario, and it turns into a car chase, and Maul's team almost gets Vario too, but the police interrupt them and protect Vario and take him back to the police headquarters. And Vario is all worried that they don't have enough security there, and he's like, you know, God, how are you going to be able to protect me? He's like, you're in the police station, come on now. No one's dumb enough to come here. Dumb or ballsy enough, because Maul certainly is. But Vario tells Lawson about the Shadow Collective, and that's what he's nervous about. But what is the Shadow Collective? But like I said, Maul has the balls to go to the police station, so Maul and his team enter the HQ, and they have this, like, goofy, you know, Sithy, salty, angry droid named Spybot helping them, and he's like, you know, like, I love a good sassy droid. But this droid helps them get in and turns off the cameras and starts hacking into the station to like shut everything down. You know, now they're in the security cameras, running the elevators, running the cells, you know, so they can open the doors if they need to. You know, so this is a little droid. You know, you always need a droid around, but droids are always capable of much more than they seem. But like I said earlier in this episode too, most of Lawson's cops are all droids, so Maul's team handles most of them, but Lawson's partner, a droid named Two Boots, gets the system back online and runs to get backup, but Maul arrives and slices all the rest of the droids and takes Lawson's gun, but doesn't kill Lawson for some reason, right? Like, he wipes out all the droids, but he's not willing to kill the police chief or whatever, captain, and he like takes his gun and then with lightsaber still in hand, double punches Lawson in the face and just knocks him out. So I was like, he had the lightsaber right there. He could have killed him very easily, but he chose to just be like, I wonder if this double uppercut still works. Knockout. And it worked. Maul then goes over to Vario's cell and starts questioning him, and like he's pretty much going to kill him unless he tells him something that he wants to hear, and Vario is able to bargain for his life for now. And then Maul is left standing there in the hallway, and directly across the hall from Vario was that girl that got arrested, and I have a clip of like what she sees and how this first episode ends. So what a way to end the first episode, as, you know, she's like, oh shit, don't see me. And Maul just like turns his head, locks onto her, and he doesn't even say anything. He just walks up to her in the shadow of his horns over her face as she just goes, Maul. And that's credits on episode 1. But I was like, so who is this girl? You know, they never say her name, and she never says her name. But clearly Maul had some type of vision about this girl. So what does he want with her? I'm sure it's just maybe a new apprentice or whatnot, but maybe this particular girl is special, but we don't know why quite yet. You know, this girl clearly knows whoever he is because she recognizes him and says his name, Maul, and that's credits on episode 1. So let's dive right into chapter 2, Sinister Schemes, as we open with Maul and his team breaking Devon out of prison and, you know, out of the police station, and she's trying to get away and, like, you know, struggle against them, but the spy bot tranquilizes her, so she, you know, is knocked out, and they get her on a ship and they're escaping. But as they're making their getaway, Devon's master jumps down onto the road and uses the Force to flip over the ship and stop them. And like, they look at Maul and Maul looks at the master, and instead of attacking this Jedi and dealing with him and dealing with the cops all right now, which he probably could have with his laser sword, 1v whatever, but instead he makes a distraction for this Jedi, and he, you know, uses like a civilian footbridge and he breaks it so all these people start to fall, and this guy has to use the Force to protect them, as Maul then makes his getaway with his Padawan, or with Devon. But I just love that, like, you know, his Padawan gets locked up in jail, and instead of going and finding food himself, he just sits in the rain and just, like, looks at this, like, police station, just, like, waiting for something to happen, or, like, waiting for her to be moved or something. And then he, you know, tries to help her against Maul, but he's unsuccessful in the moment. But he is successful saving all those people, so maybe, who knows, maybe Lawson and him will start working together. But I love that, like, he jumps down and we get, like, this pretty sick shot of like this older reptilian creature flipping over this like transport, and Vario's on the inside like, what the fuck? You know, like, and then they all go crashing, and then, you know, Maul gets out and looks at him. It's like, oof, wow, what a scene. But so Maul gets away with Devon, and Captain Lawson's sitting there, and he tries to thank the master, and he's like, thank you, but then the master like struggles, and he looks up to see like what he's struggling at, and then, you know, he was just setting the bridge back together, or letting go the bridge now that everyone's saved, and the master disappears. So so the master doesn't want to be known for his Force, and doesn't want to be, you know, arrested by the cops or whatever, but I don't think Lawson was necessarily going to arrest him. I think he was trying to thank him, but either way, he disappears, leaving the cops to wonder what Maul wants with that girl. But back at Maul's little base, Maul tells the Mandalorian woman, Rook Cass, that the woman they took is a Jedi, and that he will make her into a weapon to go against Darth Sidious. Which, Palpatine, I'm pretty sure. But Maul locks her in a cell and says, you have been indoctrinated since you were a child. Now you must adapt, and walks away. And she's left just to sit with these words. You know, because Maul, like, he's not the most outspoken guy. So when he does speak, he speaks very fluently and eloquently, but to the point, and then moves on, right? Like, so you're just, like, if I was Maul's apprentice, I'd be like, what the fuck did you just say to me? And I'm just sitting there thinking about it for hours, you know, like, God damn it, Maul. We then see Captain Lawson make it home after a long night, and he sees his son Riley, who seems to want to go see their mother, and he's like, wait for me to go see her, it's dangerous, you know. So he wants to protect his son, but he's also working too much, so he doesn't have that great a relationship with his son. But also, like, he wants to go see the mom, so maybe they're divorced or something, or maybe the mom is like in jail or something. I don't know what happened to the mom, but like, where's mom? That's I just wrote in my notes, where's mom? Question mark. We then see Maul, you know, making Vario work with him, and he goes, you will help him kill Krim. And so as soon as he says this, I was like, huh, so Vario, Demas, and this guy Krim, are these all people that are part of the Shadow Collective, and Maul is trying to take them out one by one? Interesting. But so Vario has to help Maul kill this guy named Krim. We then cut over to Lawson, and we find out that his first name is Captain Brander Lawson, as he goes to see a friend named Soul, and she seems to be like a, maybe club owner of some sorts, but she's definitely some type of alien type creature. And, she seems to be kind of flirting with Lawson, and he asks her about Shadow Collective, and she says, oh, that'll cost him. He says, whatever it takes. And she tells him it's based on Mandalore, she remembers, with a boss named Maul, who merged the Pikes, Crimson Dawn, and Black Sun. And Lawson's like, after that? And the girl goes, well, after the war, Maul vanished, and the Syndicate split up, probably happier with Maul gone. And the lady goes, if Maul's here, watch your back. But then she also kind of hits on Lawson, and she's like, I'm free for dinner if you want to get a bite to eat. So maybe this is like an old girlfriend or something. We then cut over to Maul asking Devin, what is it like to be a Jedi in such a time of lawlessness? And she's like, let me out of here, let me leave. And he's like, you think I'm keeping you here? If you want out, by all means, Jedi, leave. And just like the way that Maul speaks, I'm like, oh, I love this line so much. But, maybe egging her on to break out of her cell, or maybe he just wants to see what she's made of. But we then cut over to Maul's crew going to board Krim's ship, and he is a Pike, we see. And the only reason I really know that is from Star Wars Outlaws or something like that, the video game where like you're going up against a bunch of the crime syndicates like Crimson Dawn and the Pikes and the Hutts and whatnot, the Empire, but he goes on to this Pike ship and boards, Maul does, and he wipes all of them out, and they're taking more of their credits, and he sticks the Pike to the ceiling in this great shot, and he's like, I bet you do think that, and then slices the guy in half. I was like, oh dude, Maul's such a vicious man. But also, he boards this Pike ship, kills this guy, and then, kills this whole crew and steals their money. Now, I don't know if this was actually Krim on this ship or just, Krim's crew or whatnot. But, Krim, I think, is who he's going to be after next. But also, he's stealing all these credits. What does Maul want these credits for? Or is he just taking back what is his? We then see Maul come back to his little base and come back to Devin in her cell, and he says it is time for her to view the galaxy for what it is. And she tries to use the Force to bust open the door that, it's like this big vault door, and she isn't strong enough to try and, open this door. But she changes her point of view and moves to the back of the container and sees that there's air coming through this gap through the wall, and she uses the Force to push the whole container away from the wall. So rather bust open the cell door that's all sealed shut, she moves the whole container away from the wall and frees herself. And this is now credits on episode 2. So I was like, okay, so just that classic, it made me think of that Obi-Wan line, it's just a point of view. And you have to move your point of view. But no. So what does Maul want with this girl Devin, and why is Devin powerful, but she seems to be young, so maybe she's still learning. Thowie's still learning. But it's fine, she seems like she's gonna be cool. But also she's a Jedi, but also we don't know a whole lot about her. He says she's a Jedi, but we as an audience still haven't heard her name. The only reason I know her name is because of closed captions. So, what is Devin up to? What is this girl's real identity? I wonder if she was in the Jedi Temple as a youngling and survived the Order 66 or whatnot. I wonder if we'll see any of that. But also, when, Maul gets chopped in half, episode 1, Order 66 is until episode 3. So if we're after, where are we in time? I don't know. I'm so confused. I just want to know, I was really hoping that it would open the show with, Coruscant 30 BBY or whatever, so then I at least could go, okay, 30 is from here, this is when that's in, okay, and then you could figure it out. But at the current moment, I'm slightly lost. So if anyone out there knows exactly when this is set in the Star Wars universe, that would be helpful. But also, have we seen anything of the Shadow Collective in other Star Wars projects, or is this the first we're hearing of this? Who is the girl? You know, like, what is her deal? And, you know, they haven't really actually mentioned her name, but, like, why does Maul want her? And you know, what does he want from her? Or is it just he's there to, like, the rule of two, he needs a new apprentice, and this is the one that he saw in a vision, so this is his new apprentice? I don't know. Or maybe he saw her become a very powerful Sith or something. I don't know. There was rumors that maybe she could be Darth Talon, which I literally just saw this morning on the toilet. I was like, oh, wait, scroll back. And I was like, wait, she kind of looks similar, you know, although Darth Talon is red and she's like pink. But I don't know, maybe the Twi'lek skin color can change to red if you're a Sithy evil. I don't know. But through the 2 episodes so far, I'm very curious to see what Maul is up to and what this girl's story is going to be and what the rest of the show is even going to be about. And, like, how does it tie into the greater Star Wars universe, or will it just stand alone by itself? Possibly, you know, maybe they want to just be able to do multiple seasons exploring what Maul is up to. But for them to be able to do this type of show, it had to have been some type of good idea. And, you know, I'm thinking maybe we'll see more of Crimson Dawn. Maybe they'll tie into, like, Solo, you know, a Star Wars story. Maybe they'll also tie into, like, Rebels in Clone Wars, and they'll maybe tie in with that design of, like, Darth Vader or something. I don't know. But I'm fascinated to see this. This will be coming out on Mondays, I believe, so expect breakdowns for Maul Shadow Lord every Tuesday. And then Tuesday nights, anybody that's a Marvel fan out there, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 Episode 4 drops tonight, so there will be a breakdown for that on the channel tomorrow. Make sure you guys stay tuned. I am so excited for more Daredevil Born Again. I cannot wait. That show's been awesome, and I love me some Daredevil, but I also love me some Star Wars. So any Star Wars fans out there, I'd love to chat with you, talk about Maul Shadow Lord, talk about your favorite Maul scenes, whether it's from Rebels or Clone Wars or whatnot, or even from a Phantom Menace. You know, Duel of the Fates, come on now. That's still one of the most iconic scenes of all time. Me and my roommate went a couple years ago to the 25th anniversary, was, you know, back in theaters, and I had never gotten to see Episode 1 in theaters. I'm a little too young for that. So, you know, being able to see the Duel of the Fates on the big screen with that music, the John Williams score playing through movie speakers, absolutely iconic. I can't recommend enough. If Star Wars films come back to the theaters and you haven't seen that one in theaters, go check it out, because it's worth it, you know? And I think next year will be the Star Wars 50th anniversary for the original OG Star Wars. So, you know, it's 1977. So if A New Hope, you know, as much as I don't love that movie because it's the oldest one, but it's still got some great stuff in it. But it's the oldest one, so it looks the oldest, you know what I mean? But it's now 50 years old, so if I get a chance to see that in theaters, I got to. You know, there's no way I won't be there to see that, you know? But, you know, comment below. Who's your favorite Star Wars character? Who's your favorite hero? Who's your favorite Sith? You know, I like that there's some gray area with, like, the scoundrels and stuff in the middle. You know, even Han Solo. Is he a hero? Kinda. But he also shot Greedo. Like, Han shot first. But Star Wars fans out there, we're heading towards May with Mandalorian and Grogu too, so tons of stuff to be excited about for Star Wars fans, and I hope you join me for the rest of Maul Shadow Lord, and let's chat more. And if you want to chat more about these 2 episodes, you can comment below, or you can send your thoughts to my other social medias. Links for those down in the description below. Once again, my name's Big Cam. If you guys have made it this far into the episode and you would like to support the channel, the best way of doing that is smashing the like button, dropping a comment down below, subscribing if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss future breakdowns of Maul Shadow Lord, and you'll get the notifications when those come out. Once again, my name's Big Cam, and I'll see you gorgeous folks in the next video. Peace.